Are you ready? So I am feeling so just like I need to record, but today I'm just getting a lot of stuff. Today is Thursday. I've been playing around with these ideas, with the idea of messing around with the day of the week that I record my podcast. I've been listening to Danielle Laporte. I learned about this through her. She mentions the days of the week have different energies because each day of the week is associated with a different planet. I've been recording on Mondays, which is associated with the moon, which is very sort of introspective, deep, which makes sense, at least for the beginning of the podcast. But I'm really feeling like I'm shifting into something else. And I know I do a lot of teaching, but I think what I'm going to step into a little more is just, and I do when I still record, it's not going to change so much, but channeling. I think like I'm getting like a ton of downloads that I just have to share with you guys like right now. So number one, water. And I think I'm going to do an episode on water, but water is the most important thing as humans that we need to, outside of air. So like, if you look at the elements and all the zodiac signs are associated with the four elements, right? So earth, water, fire, air. Those are the most important things in our life. We don't have one of those things, we don't have life. And water is, I really think water is going to be the first to go. I mean, the quality of our air is one thing because it's our atmosphere, but water is a finite resource. And take it while we can fucking get it. And drink it. And if you don't feel good, drink water. Drink water. It helps. It's like, it's such a underutilized. I don't understand how people don't easily see the importance of drinking water every day. I read something also about it had, I think it had like Gwyneth Paltrow on the front of it. I'm not sure what source it was, but it was like wellness has become inaccessible to everyone. The wellness movement is becoming less and less of a thing because it's inaccessible. And guess what? Yeah, is stepping in front of red light therapy every morning built into your house with a hot plunge and a sauna and like, yeah, that's not wellness. Okay, that's luxury. And what we talk about here on this podcast is wellness from the inside out. You do little by little. And the amazing thing about wellness, the way I teach it, is that it's literally like an investment system where you put a little bit into the bank and it reaps the benefits and it reaps the rewards. And that's where it grows. You put it, it's like a 401k. You put it in, you get the matching amounts, and it grows with the market. And that's how it is. This whole wellness movement dwindling or not being relevant was such an offensive article to me and such a short-sighted, fear-mongering way to communicate that wellness has become very trendy. So I wanted to start off with that because they're burning and I need to get them out. We'll see how this episode goes because I didn't to outline too much of it. I did last week. So if you liked last week, let me know. But this week we're talking about boundaries. And we're talking, actually, we're not just talking about boundaries. We're talking about rebuilding your relationships. And that is essentially what it is. It's boundaries. It's focusing on the foundations of the relationships and how you're feeling before, during, and after those relationships. So just like a quick scrub here, what do your relationships look like? Who are the main players? I wanted to talk about just really breaking down what kind of relationships there are, because my husband tells me this all of the time, and he's like, you have different relationships for different reasons. Not everyone is your best friend, and equally so, not everyone's your boss. Not everyone's your family. So not everyone's your friends, period. So when we look at the different levels of relationships that we have in our life, we have our inner circle, which could be comprised of friends and family. And then we have friends in general that are not necessarily on the inner circle, but they're friends. Then you sort of have acquaintances. And along the lines of that, within those categories, you have people that you work with, and that adds a whole other layer of complexity into relationships. But we really want to look at every relationship that is in our life is a lesson, is an opportunity for us to step up, to be more authentic, to be a better leader, to be strong, to be happy. There are many different things that community nurture within us that are necessary, almost like an element to be healthy. And some of those relationships are going to be instigating relationships. Some of those relationships are going to push us to look at things that maybe we're not looking at. I worked with someone who really just like got under my skin, and there was nothing inherently wrong with this person. I don't think that they were a bad person. And listen, this isn't just one person. This is like numerous people that I've worked with. And you come in and you hear things about other people, and people are saying other things about people. So you have to formulate your own opinions, but you have biases because, there's a lot of complexity to relationships. But this particular person, the relationship ended probably a little sooner than it should have, because I had left the company sooner than I had planned. And I never tucked away and put to bed these relationship dynamics. And guess what? You leave a job, leaving toxicity in the workplace or with people, and guess what? You're going to find it somewhere else if you don't put it to bed in your own psyche and facing the things that you need to face so that you know why you're actually coming up against these types of dynamics. But that person was an instigator, was a pusher for me to look at myself and say, oh, these are the ugly parts of myself that I don't want to face, but that are there. I want you to think about when you're looking at your relationships, because this is technically week 6 of the 8-week program, and it's called Rebuilding Relationship Dynamics. And this is extremely important, especially for women, because women have issues with boundary setting. And women say yes to so many things that they maybe just should not be saying yes to, that they feel bad for, that they feel like it's their responsibility, that they feel like if they don't do it, no one else is going to do it right. Like, enough. Your number one priority is yourself. Your number one priority is protecting your energy. I know it can feel good to be creative and to be productive, but when it's at the expense of your energy in a way that's not feeding your soul on a deep level, that's when we have to examine. I had a woman that I worked with who had this coming up in her personal relationships, in her marriage. When we were working together after she finalized her divorce, she mentioned she was able to identify what she liked and what she didn't. And it was not like a personal thing, and it doesn't feel bad. We just don't have time anymore for shit we don't like. We don't have to eat it anymore. It's not our job to protect people when it doesn't feel good for us. We don't have to be mean. We definitely shouldn't be mean. But we have to be firm and we have to be clear. Healthy relationships are built on boundaries, level setting, and obviously self-respect and mutual respect. That's what a healthy relationship is based on. And just to come back to the work relationships, because this is where the program really focuses on, is like work. It's feedback, clarity, and respect. I remember one guy I worked with came to me and said, hey, Lindsay, I didn't like the way you did this. I didn't like the way you acted. was actually somebody that I worked with, that somebody who I had come into the company through was like, I don't like him, this and that. And it made me have like a bias. But when he said that to me, I'm like, I respect you so much more. Respect and thank you. I will take that home and work on that. Just to cover a little bit of more work stuff, you want to look at your direct reports. You want to look at your bosses, everyone that you report to, whether it's up or down. And the most interesting thing that I've heard is that it's easier to manage up and it's easier to manage down, but it's the most difficult to manage linear, to manage side by side, to manage somebody who is your colleague working in the same role. But you want to look at what's working and what's not working. So I had another situation where I worked with someone who was my equal at the time. And he was very intelligent, but he was very difficult socially and interpersonally. It was in the height of COVID. I asked him if he could spare some time for a Zoom call. And it was difficult. He would give me like pushing back on me. He's like, I can only give you 15 minutes. I asked for like a half an hour. He's like, I can only give you 15 minutes. So I get on the phone and in face to face and I'm telling him the way we're working is not working for either of us. And for me, like this is not. And I think at that point, that was the level setting. That was me coming to him with humility, saying, I need your help to help us because we need to be a team. And we need to function optimally. And this is how I see that we're not functioning optimally. And I think that conversation was difficult. No one told me to have that conversation, but I had that conversation. And I think again, just the way the other guy mentioned to me, he didn't like what I did. I think I got a level of respect from this person who was like, okay, we level set. No bad blood. That's the thing. Once you put it out in the open and you're just like, there's no bad blood, but like we need to talk about it. You level set. If the other person's doing their work, they're not going to be stressing or like, that's the thing about work is that it's super logical. You can have personal issues with family and friends and harboring stuff, but at work, you don't harbor stuff because you'll never see the person again. So, it's just a different dynamic that's much more straightforward. But for the purposes of this podcast, for this episode, I really also want to talk about familial and friendship-based relationships. Because while those can be the most rewarding on a personal level, they are also the most difficult. I'd love for you to just take a look at one relationship. By the end of this episode, I'm going to ask you to look at one relationship. If you know instinctually what relationship that is going to be, keep it in mind as we continue the conversation here. But I'm going to ask you to look at one relationship, and I will give you some prompts to take home with you to think about it. I read a book by Mastin Kipp. He's a trauma-informed coach. So he works on regulating your nervous system, and he wrote a book called Claim Your Power. It's like the 40-day journey to, that's a very long title, but if you write Claim Your Power 40-day journey, Mastin Kipp, you'll find it. I'll give you the Cliff's Notes here. It was every single day for 40 days, you journal through this progression of prompts. By the end of it, you're going to address the people in your life that you need to address. I would love to have Mastin Kipp on my podcast just to talk about this because he's awesome. I felt at that time, this was in 2023, like right before everything in my life changed. I took inventory and I addressed old issues that have never been mentioned, that had never been, spoken about and addressed. And I addressed them. And it was empowering. And it was funny because it was a book, and it wasn't, I did this with my therapist and this and that. Like, no, I did it with a book, which felt like, I don't know, a kind of little loosey-goosey, but still it had merit. And it really, really felt empowering to me to do this and to stay committed to it. He has a new book, which I saw. It's called Reclaim Your Nervous System, which I think I'm going to read too, because I feel like that book has got to be dope. When you do these relationship resets, you want to be radically honest about where you stand, where the other person stands, what you want, and you're going to have a conversation about what the other person wants. I also watched a episode on the Almost 30 podcast, or listened to it, where they, and I'll link that here. It's like a relationship reset. I sent it to my best friend. It's interesting because it's really being honest about what you want in a friendship. What's cool, what's not cool. Like, let's bring some fresh air in here. Like, there's some feelings. I mean, by the way, my best friend, I've known her for 30 years. This is like, we've been through a lot. So there are always different dynamics that come and go, that that we forget, that one of us is going through that the other one doesn't realize, and vice versa, and all these things. But like, when we don't have, I'm not saying that every relationship needs this reset, but if you're thinking about it yourself and you're thinking about, I don't like this, this is the dynamic, this is the way I'm showing up, you start to be able to formulate where the boundaries lie. Because I think the most difficult part of boundaries is when you look at someone and you want them to like you. You want the validation. You want to be seen. You want to be appreciated. And in that process, you betray yourself. You say things that maybe are a little too vulnerable. You do things that you don't really want to do, that don't feel really good. Again, this is why it's so important for you to focus on how you want to feel. Because we can get into habits of doing things that we don't want to do for so long that we forget what feels good. So when we constantly remind ourselves of what feels good, what do I want to feel, then we become clearer and more aware of when we're betraying ourselves in relationships. Additionally, relationships that make you feel nervous or anxious or raise your heart rate, those are relationships that you want to pay attention to. And by the way, when I say relationships, I don't mean the person. I do not mean the person. You don't have to end a relationship with someone because your heart rate is raised and you feel anxious around them and all that. Like, you don't need to end a relationship over that. You need to understand why you're getting that way around that person. But we get so addicted to feeling our heart rate increase, us get excited, that feeling calm and grounded. We forget how good that feels. We forget how good it feels to be able to just be ourselves. We get addicted to the adrenaline. We get addicted to the rush. We get addicted to the chasing, and we get addicted to just the climbing. And that's the part that the more we regulate, the more we can realize, okay, this is not in alignment because I don't feel great right now. I feel too much pressure. I feel too far from this person. This person feels out of reach for me. And sometimes it's their shit, but for the most part, it's our stuff. It's our stuff. And I was in an abusive relationship in college. And I remember when I went and I had that yoga teacher, the Kundalini yoga training, the woman had said to me, you should go to him and you should confront that. And I'm like, abso-fucking-lutely not. That is like the worst advice I've ever been given. This is like a dangerous person. But I understood what she was saying about facing the inner workings of how you mix with this person. What is it about this person that brings out the worst in both of you? It's not your job to make sure that someone else is doing their work. But what is your job is to say, this doesn't work for me. This is why. And this is the line. This is how I want it to be going forward. And then it requires a level of self-respect and a level of, I do not betray myself in the face of being betrayed. Some people just haven't done the work. So you can't always expect people to show up the way you're showing up. But that's where the boundaries come in, where you're like, all right, I made it clear what I like and what I don't like. And by the way, when you're level setting in these relationships, you start with the good stuff. I love you. You've always been so supportive of me. I can tell the way you love me by X, Y, and Z. And I love you because of X, Y, and Z. And da, 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 da. But I need this. I need you to know this, and I need this to change. And I need you to trust me because I'm also like, when we show up differently in relationships and we really stand our ground and stand in our dignity and stand in our sovereignty, there's no lower level of the person that's going to leech on a lower level of us because we're not showing up that way in the relationship. So again, I want you to think about one person that you want to work on resetting with and airing out and reflecting on. If it's just, I'm not going to be able to approach that person because let's use the example of the abuser. Like, I don't feel safe around this person, then okay, then obviously don't go and do that. But for yourself, if you can get clarity and organize your thoughts and feelings around how you contributed to the dynamic, how you allowed certain things, whether it was 2 times or 100 times, why? How are you going to change going forward? Where do you see this pattern of this relation showing up in other relationships in your life? How can you hold more boundaries? What are the boundaries that you have to uphold for yourself to show up in a more empowered way in this relationship? You have to be radically honest with yourself before you can be radically honest with others. And when you are not an honest person, other people feel that, and you generally attract people that are not honest. And that is the goal here, guys. We have to get honest, and we have to continue and continue and continually get more and more honest with ourselves, because we don't even realize we're lying to ourselves. When we have a lot of trauma, we don't even realize that we're lying to ourselves. So that's it, guys. The takeaway here, we want to have our boundaries in our relationship. We want to level set. We want to have self-respect, and we want to have mutual respect, and recognize that all relationships in our life, whether they're close, distant, even someone bumping into you in the street, is a mirror of what's going on in your world, in your inner world. I love you. I will see you next week. Hasta la vista.